Stellar Meridian, folks, is the 3-day annual conference for hosted by the Stellar Foundation. And joining us, we have the Chief of Staff and Vice President of the Stellar Development Foundation. We've got Lauren Thorbjornsen. Thanks so much for joining us, Lauren.
Thank you for having me and for being here in London at Meridian.
All right. So I understand that this year's theme is transformation. Tell us what that means. What's that all about?
Yeah, it's a big year for us at Stellar. We're marking our 10 years since the network was launched. So transformation is a lot about what's the transformation we've seen over the last 10 years, and what do we hope, what kind of transformation do we want to see from the network, from our builders, from this like very big global ecosystem who's participating in Stellar in the next 10 years. So it's a lot about transformation in the past and kind of how that built us up for transformation in the future.
Set us up with today, what to expect. How many people are coming? I see we've got developers, there's a hacking house there. What are you expecting out of this?
Yeah, we have grown a lot. Sam was in Madrid, so we were, I think one thing we really try to do, maybe that's different than other crypto conferences, make it a really intimate, unique vibe, picking cool venues like the Church House, making sure that it's just a place that sort of represents the eclectic global nature of our audience. So we're going to have about 800 expected attendees this year. We have 130 speakers. And they're from 65 countries. It is just a mix of, all that you were saying, developers, entrepreneurs, enterprise, policymakers, kind of folks who touch all different parts of this industry in different ways, and sort of bringing us all together to talk about how we all deliver transformation together.
What panels are you most excited about? Who's speaking that you want to make sure that you catch?
Okay, that's a great question, because there are a lot. So one particular that I'm excited about, we've been doing a lot more work in West Africa over the past couple of years. And so Idris Elba is going to be here for a fireside chat and talking a little bit, I don't want to scoop it, but talking a little bit about things we've been doing together in the region. Mm-hmm. Then tomorrow, kind of in the same vein, there's a panel called Blockchain Trendsetters in Emerging Markets. And I think we'll talk a lot about sort of people who are serving the global majority, those folks who sometimes we call financially underserved or unbanked, but who are really those folks who have such amazing needs and power in the global economy. And, really what can we do to bring financial tools to them? So a lot about the builders who are working on those sorts of problems. What else is good? We're going to have MasterCard. We're going to have Paxos. PayPal's going to be here. We have Franklin Templeton. I think if you guys are familiar with Franklin Templeton, has been doing some work on Stellar over the past few years. That's really exciting on the tokenization front. So that's going to be there. We have 3 stages, so there's a lot. I'm like running through. What are all the things to say? We have, because I kind of mentioned we have these stages or we have this mix of audience. So we have the main stage, which is kind of that stage for everyone. We have the developer stage, which is really getting technical into the content for those developers. And then we have the last one, which is really a partner ecosystem stage, so really focused on highlighting and showcasing many of the products and companies that are building on the network.
Yeah. And Lauren, when we were together last year, you mentioned some of the stuff that you were working on with Idris on bringing financial inclusion to Africa. Sounds like you've made a ton of headway there. You also, I believe last year was when you teased out Sorbonne, right? So smart contracts coming to Stellar. It seems like that's also now there's a ton of new users who are playing in that space. Can you tell us a little bit as to where Sorbonne's gone?
Yeah, so smart contracts went live on the network this year, and I think you're going to hear a lot from Tomer Weller, who's our chief product officer, who really helped bring Sorbonne to being and now sort of is helping shepherd it going forward, and from Nico, who's our chief technology officer, about sort of what Sorbonne brought to the tech stack, mm-hmm. and kind of how we're thinking about Stellar now as really innovations is now in the hand of the ecosystems. The tech stack, Stellar as a network, that infrastructure layer, is Sorbonne really kind of completed it. And now really it's any innovation that happens from here is because developers go out there and say, I have this cool idea, and now I just have all this green space thanks to Sorbonne to do things with it. And so I think you'll hear a lot, particularly on Builders Bridge, which is that developer stage, about what builders are doing so far. You'll hear from Blend, kind of about some of I don't want to scoop any of their presentations, so go listen to it. And what Blend is doing. And I think hopefully what we hope is that's going to inspire even more developers to think about, okay, now what could I do with Sorbonne going
Have you
forward.
heard much feedback from developers on working with Soroban as compared to other smart contract platforms out there?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that make Soroban really innovative and differentiated from other chains. I'm not going to pretend here to be a technical expert, so don't quote me on this. Go talk to Tomer or Nico, because I think they'll tell you. Or Garand has a talk actually on state archival, which is one of the things, right? I think one of those really cool technical differentiators about Soroban is that it's not data heavy because they have a way to do state archival and restoration. And that sort of is one of those big sort of technical leaps I think Soroban solved that other chains don't have. But again, go or listen. You'll hear from Tomer, you'll hear from Garand, you'll hear from a bunch of SDF engineers, but also ecosystem engineers who are better suited than I as a strategy person talking about technical differentiators.
Excellent. And so you mentioned that last year Stellar Meridian was in Madrid. This year's in London. Why London? Is it? I don't know. What do you think that the UK could bring to the network?
So first, I think it's a financial hub. It's also a really global space, and I think that's what we want to reflect. And usually, when we're trying to pick a location for Meridian, so 3 years, the very first one was in 2019 in Mexico City. We've then been in Rome, we've been in Madrid, and now we're in London. And I think we want to pick places that, one, have, reflect that global audience, and this maybe seems obvious, but maybe not. It's a logistical point, but we do have all these global people. How are they going to fly into one place? And we try to pick somewhere that's sort of convenient, and also has that, inspiring, I think we see this event really as a moment to inspire our ecosystem. So what can we do? And where can we pick to have this event as a way that's really going to energize and recharge people and get excited for what's happening in the year ahead? And what better city than London? I'm sure, I don't know, you're walking around, there's just a vibe here, and it just feels exciting to be in the city.
I like it. You mentioned a global place where everyone can, come to. I wonder, geographically, where are you seeing the users of Stellar right now and the development? Is it mostly in emerging markets? Is it in Asia, North America?
I think emerging markets is absolutely really where Stellar's biggest foothold is. So I think in Latin America and Africa, I think there are certainly builders in North America and in Europe and some in Asia. But I think that, at least from my perspective, a lot of the most compelling, because I think, something we talk about a lot at the Stellar Development Foundation, and what we think the technology is useful for is utility. So solving real world problems for real people. And we tend to find that some of those greatest needs are in those markets, and developers are coming up with really creative solutions to meet those needs in those markets because they have that. In the US, you ultimately have banking solutions, right? So you don't need them quite as much, whereas I think in some of those markets, people are really bringing things that bring that utility and make a really big difference in people's everyday lives. And I think that's really what we're striving to, is everyday, using the tech stack for everyday financial services.
Some of the biggest tech trends right now are, everyone's talking about artificial intelligence, and I'm sure that's going to fit somewhere in the conversations today. Where is Stellar in that development?
I think it's really early days for us, but there are a couple of sessions, particularly one on the Blockchain Bureau, which is with, we work closely often with PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they're going to talk a lot about how sort of what we've learned from early days of blockchain, AI, generative AI now, and how that can even power more of blockchain's growth spurt. So I think there's some interesting things there that they're going to unpack. I think it's just still really early days, at least in my opinion, of how we're going to be able to apply AI to blockchain, and we're all still sort of figuring that out. Emerging tech, it moves so fast. So I don't know that I have a perfect answer for you, other than I think that this is sort of what Meridian is for. Let's see where we go.
I guess what I wonder about that is, and this is going to take a leap, but because you guys are focused on this global majority, those who don't even have basic financial rule sets and tools that they can utilize, the idea of how do we hypercharge agents that can trade for us is really far away for most of those people. And one of my favorite things about being at Meridian is hearing the person on the ground who is like, I just don't have a way to pay a vendor, to pay a partner, to get paid for my work. And someone here is trying to build that. And I think that's really exciting. this term of the global majority is something Christine and I were talking about earlier. It feels like a new term that I'm just starting to hear a lot of. And it sounds like what it's focusing on is the fact that most of us in the world still don't have great tools for financial inclusion, for understanding savings, payments, transferring money here and there, and we're still relying on very archaic systems. Is that the right way to read that the global majority is this group that is underserved in that spectrum?
Yes, but I think actually what it's trying to do is flip a little bit on that head, that instead of addressing it as a lack, focusing it as an opportunity. That this is a huge population of our world who is missing something, but who has incredible agency and power to demand and change that, right? And I think sometimes when we refer to it as either being underserved or unbanked, sometimes it just makes it almost seem like they don't have agency. And I think, at least, why that narrative resonates with me is, I think it's putting the power back into the hands of the people who really deserve and want good solutions.
Okay. What are some of the short versus long-term goals here at Stellar?
That's a great question. I think everyone is, I don't think this is unique to us necessarily, adoption, right? I think short-term and long-term, the answer is probably adoption, and finding ways that, blockchain markets, Stellar included, have penetrated to a point, and now how do we make it more accessible to the mainstream? So I think we will be looking at lots of different ways we do that, whether it's based on usability and UX, or even finding ways to integrate more. I think we are big believers in interoperability. So how does crypto and blockchain better integrate into your existing financial services, and sort of we complete a more global vision of what financial services can offer, as opposed to, I think, this vision of TradFi over here, blockchain over here. Let's bring them together. So I think, at least we think about that a lot in terms of that road of adoption, and maybe there's incremental steps in terms of how we do it. Sam, you were mentioning we've been really focused on payments. I think that's certainly an entry point that we think of. Everyone makes payments every day in their lives, right? It's sort of the most accessible way, I think, hopefully, that we start getting towards adoption. And then hopefully that can grow and create investment tools and all these other things.
Well, that's really the purpose of conferences like this, to get everyone together to talk about the challenges and to, get that mainstream adoption closer with all the networking and opportunities and interconnected projects here. So very excited to check out some of the speaker sessions and the projects here and find out how they're developing. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Have fun.
Thank you, Lauren.
All right, that was Stellar Development Foundation Chief of Staff and Vice President Lauren Thorbjornsen. Coming up, we'll get technical. We'll learn more about Stellar's Soroban smart contract system, more with Tommaso Di Ponte. He's a co-founder and lead developer at Zyclu Labs.